afternoon. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz. I'm coming to you today as the co-founder and chair of the World Tourism Network. Our co-chair is Dr. Taleb Rifai. He was the former two-term Secretary-General of the World Tourism Organization and currently is wearing many different hats, but is still, I would say, one of the most prominent and knowledgeable people in the world of travel and tourism. He has a revolutionary message I think we can adopt in WTN and work our way forward. This message is tourism will not bounce back. UNWTO, the World Health Organization, the EU, the US, all the governments really failed in the response to this virus, and we're building a new travel and tourism industry brick by brick, step by step, and it'll be a better and a more sustainable world in the next generation of tourism. Please read the article, listen to the interview Dr. Taleb Rifai gave to a Portuguese TV station yesterday. It is in English, and we're copying the content from that station with their kind permission. Thank you again, and enjoy Taleb's view. And if you wanted to share your opinion, you can do this at WTN.travel. Click on contact, and we'd be happy to hear from you. Also, if you're not a member of the World Tourism Network yet, please join us and be part of our Rebuilding.travel discussion. It's a global discussion with members now in 127 countries. Simply go to WTN.travel, WTN.travel/registration, or click on the join link.
Good afternoon.
You, obrigado. Thank you so much for all the kind introduction that you've made.
How are you?
I'm doing well, alhamdulillah.
Okay,
very good.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this interview. Since we have only 40 minutes for this interview, I will start with a question with the interview you gave Publituris in 2017. At that time, the first question was, how do you define the current moment in the tourism industry, considering the latest events related to terrorism, Brexit, and the election of Donald Trump to the White House? Today, I begin to asking you how you define the current moment for the tourism industry in considering the pandemic crisis that has been going on now for more than 1 year.
Thank you so much. Let me start by thanking Professor Nuno for his kind introduction. He humbled. And you too, Victor. You're two kind people. Coming from a country I respect very much, Portugal. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Now, to direct answer to your question is, we're at a very defining moment. Today, we will not bounce back. We will leap forward into a new world, a better and more sustainable world, definitely. But we're in a defining moment for all mankind. Everything will change. It's not like 3-4 years ago, where I did predict that things will go back to the way we were in 1 year, and we did. That's not what's going to happen now. It will take much longer. But there is a new norm, a new world in the shaping. Thank you.
But in this last 10 years or 12 years, the world suffered two crises. The first one in 2008, 2010, economic and then a financial crisis, where tourism industry was also affected. And now with this health crisis, would there be any way for the tourism industry to prepare itself for such a reality that we are living now? And if yes, how?
Okay, let me just add to that it's not only these two crises. Since the beginning of this century, we had 2001, the crisis of the New York attacks, remember, terrorism attacks. Mm-hmm. Then we had SARS after that in 2005. Then we had 2008, 2000. So it's a continuous sequence. But this one is different. This one is a worldwide thing, and it has to do that for a long period of time. So I think dealing with it is going to be different. It uncovered so much of our weaknesses. That's in direct answer to your question. Our weaknesses are with the multilateral system. Our multilateral system is not functioning at all. The world is not working together. The world must work together. Tourism is an industry that combines people together. It makes them linked to each other. If we don't work together, we will never get anywhere. No one country can do it on its own anymore. That's the difference this time from the last times. Thank you so much.
But as you say, we are living very uncertain times. These uncertain times must be, as you said, all together. We can only win all together. But this uncertain times, we have now, for several weeks now, a vaccine that gives us a new hope for this crisis. What should be the next step that this industry should take to make this recovery quicker?
Okay, the vaccine is an excellent booster for the morale, and it certainly works. But if we want to wait until the whole world is vaccinated, because we will not have recovered until the whole world recovers, we need 5 years at least to vaccinate 70% of the people of the world. We don't want to turn this into a political
5 years.
game.
5
Yes.
years, you said. 5
Yes,
years.
for 70% of the people of the world to be vaccinated. Definitely. We need that. Because some countries can, some countries cannot vaccinate. We don't want to turn this into a political game of those that have it and those that don't have it. It doesn't work like this. Because countries that are receiving people from vaccinated countries are okay. But they can't receive people from non-vaccinated countries. They can't send their people to non-vaccinated countries. So the whole issue of tourism and travel, connecting people together, doesn't work unless the whole world is vaccinated. Therefore, over-emphasizing vaccine is not good. I think we should adopt the concept of passport, vaccination passport, but combine that with testing, combine that with the antibodies testing as well. So any one of those would allow you to travel, because testing is by far much easier, much more affordable. And we could do it immediately now if the world helps each other. Vaccination is not going to be the answer for everything. Thank you.
But do you think that with the vaccination, do you think that we can also talk about, and you said it not in these words but in other words, with discrimination? I'm vaccinated, I can travel. You are not vaccinated, you cannot travel, but you want to be vaccinated, but you can't because you are not in that age period to be vaccinated. So how can several countries, continents deal with this discrimination?
That's why it's going to take a long time. That's why it's going to take 5 years at least. You can't vaccinate pregnant women. You can't vaccinate children now, for example. Even in countries like Israel, people are vaccinating their own citizens. They're not vaccinating the other people that are living there. That's discrimination. That's clear discrimination. So countries that can afford to vaccinate are fine. But countries that cannot afford to vaccinate, and many countries in the world cannot vaccinate, we need to vaccinate 70% of the people of the world before travel goes back to normality. That's not going to be happening unless we combine vaccination passports with testing passports. For example, testing, you can test 72 hours before you board. You can test on arrival. You can test before you depart. You can do many tests if testing becomes more affordable and more available. And combine the both of them together. That's how you should be able to travel. Otherwise, it's discriminatory, definitely.
Yes, but you have also an inconsistency of the measures of several countries. You have countries that are in lockdown, other countries that are in semi-lockdown, other countries are not in lockdown. Portugal is now in lockdown, but Spain is not in such an urgent lockdown as Portugal. Other countries are allowing trips, vacations. How can the industry as a whole manage all this?
The industry is not responsible for this. What's responsible for this are the governments of the world. The governments of the world must get together. There is no other way other than doing that. They must get together and agree on a minimum protocol. You cannot have, even in the EU now, as you said, the EU is supposed to be one union. It's not acting together. You cannot go to a country that has a lockdown and travel to a neighboring country that only requires you 72 hours of testing, to another country that requires you a vaccine. You cannot do that. This is a mixed system. So you have to work together as governments. Of course, this will take time, but it's our opportunity to rebuild the multilateral system again, brick by brick from bottom up. That's what we need to do, because the current multilateral system is not operating at all. Not the EU, not the United States even. It's not United States anymore. It's the divided states of America. Each state is operating on its own. Even the United Nations is not. It's not. You don't hear anything coming out of them.
But the big issue you have now also regarding this crisis is everybody is talking about the so-called new normal. For the tourism and travel industry, what would you say would be or would be this new normal?
Let me give you an example. A few years ago, I used to take off from my car, go up the steps of an aeroplane and get into the plane. No metal detector, no taking off your shoes, no taking off your belt. It's become a normal not to take off your shoes and take off your belt. There's a new normal that's coming into being. For example, wearing a mask. The people of China wore masks way before we did. They were wearing masks even if the weather was not good at that time. In Korea, for example, you have to take off your shoes before you enter any home, no matter who you are. These norms have become normal at their culture. They're not norms at our culture. So our new norm is going to include so many additional hygiene and other practices that we're not used to. But that's part of the game. It's part of us adjusting to the new reality. We have to do that.
But do you think that this, you said this new normal with the mask and all that, do you think that is only with in the travel industry, with so-called in airplanes, in airports, or also in hotels, in restaurants, in places like that?
It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be everywhere. Just like the Chinese did it a long time ago. If you went to China 3 or 4 years ago, you'd find people wearing masks, even if they walk in the streets. Why do they do that? Because the weather is not very clean. So we're going to have to live with that. Hugging and kissing is not going to be very popular anymore, unfortunately.
Okay. Let's go back to 2017 and regarding now Portugal. You said at the time that Portugal was a great facilitator of tourism and that the country's greatest asset was people. Are these the same people who could make now a difference for the recovery of the tourism industry in Portugal? Should there be a new mindset? Portugal was yesterday elected the best destination in Europe for 2021. So what can people in Portugal do for the recovery of the industry, tourism industry? Do we as Portuguese need a new mindset to all this new normal or this new times?
I must warn you, when I speak about Portugal, I'm very biased because I love Portugal. I feel myself a Portuguese. So although I don't speak the language that good, but I can understand it. So the people of Portugal, like any other people in the world, are the basis of any tourism industry. It's the people that matter. At the end of the day, you experience things with people, not with places. You can't go to a place that is not inhabited by people. So Portugal is a very strong country because of its people, for sure. Now, what does Portugal need to do now? Portugal needs to take a leading role. As a small country, it can do that. Small is beautiful, not only beautiful, but powerful also. As a small country, Portugal can lead through its neighbors, Spain, North Africa, and start bringing these governments together and starting to make them work together on a homogenized protocol, something that they can all agree on. Because nobody's going to travel simply because the government tells them you can travel now. They have to have a peace of mind. They will only have a peace of mind if there is harmony between the many governments of the world. Unfortunately, that's not happening. Portugal made it in the past, and it will make it again now. Definitely.
But do you think that this leading role, as you said it, is it political, financial, economical? How would you describe it?
It's political. It's political.
Political?
It's political. Definitely political. It's not the financial, it's the political will of working together. That's what's lacking now.
But this leading role, should it be all just with the neighborhood countries, Spain, North Africa, or could Portugal also explore the Portuguese language with Brazil, with other African countries? How do you see this leading role?
Of course it can. Of course it can. It has to start with its neighborhood and then go slowly internationally. But Portugal has an advantage. There is a Portuguese-speaking language for Portuguese-speaking people in every continent in the world. So Portugal has a good standing in the world. It's respected. Yes, I agree. You have to create bubbles and bubble and a corridor between those bubbles. But that corridor has to be direct. You can't have stopovers in countries that are not with you in the same system. So that's why I said we start with our neighbors. If the Europeans started together from the start, they would have been in a different position now. You can't have UK doing something, France doing something else, Germany doing something, Spain doing something third, and Portugal doing something fourth. That doesn't work like that. It can't. Unfortunately, it's the only way.
I see a little bit of criticism to Europe in the differences between the several countries here in Europe. It's seen now with the vaccinations. Do you think that the several European countries will have different strategies to captivate the tourists all over the world that will not see this European Union anymore?
It's not a European Union problem only. Europe is an example of that, because the European Union has been ahead of everybody else in unifying its procedures and its methods. Now it's failed. It's the multilateral system that is failing. The whole multilateral system of governments working together. It's not working anymore in the world. This crisis has created a fantastic opportunity for us to uncover the weaknesses of our systems. The UN is not working well as well. Look at the WTO, for example, World Tourism Organization. Where is the leading role there? You don't hear them saying anything. You don't hear them bringing governments together. They can't do it. Even WHO, the organization that's in charge of that, is not taking a leading role at all. It's taking only a scientific role. What we need is a political will to rebuild the international system, and we will build it.
We will go to the WTO and other entities, but let me put another question regarding Portugal, and it's of great discussion here in Portugal that Portugal is a country that sells itself as a cheap country. There is no added value created for Portugal, and for the industry, the added value is very small. Now, with post-pandemic times, it's normally usual to have great competition between several countries, and we will see competition between Portugal and Spain, Greece and Italy, Turkey, in other countries. How should Portugal position itself to attract tourists in this new post-pandemic era or time?
I don't think it's an issue of competition at all, because in tourism, competition is seen in a different light. What's good for my neighbor is good for me, usually. If more people come to Spain, more people will come to Portugal. More people come to Morocco, more people will come to Portugal, and so on and so forth. The only thing is, how good are you in attracting the people that come to your neighborhood? And by doing that, you can't be cheap or expensive. That doesn't matter. What matters is the quality of your service. You know, in the old souks, for example, you know the souk in Arabic. Yes. The souk, all the people that sell gold are in one street. All the people that sell peppers are in one street. They don't compete with each other, because they know that if people come to buy one thing from a certain shop, they'll come to the other shop. They compete with each other only on services, how good my services are. That's what Portugal must concentrate on. Forget about the prices. It's not the prices, it's secondary. secondary issue. Are you good in providing a service to anybody? If you're good, people will come to you. And you should not look at your neighbor, Spain or Morocco or North Africa, as competitors at all. It's no competition in tourism. In tourism, if more people come to the neighborhood, they come to you. They're there, available. You just need to attract them by your services. That's what
So
you need to concentrate.
You think that if Spain has more tourism, that Portugal can benefit from it?
Definitely, definitely. I'm a resident of Spain. I have a house in south of Spain. I go to Portugal every time I am in Spain. I drive there.
Okay.
So it's normal only.
So, in another big issue that arises from this health crisis in the tourism industry is regarding employment and jobs in this new era of digital and technology. How will the future jobs in this industry of tourism and travel look like?
They'll be the same, but they look different. It's a different kind of job. For example, if you're working in a restaurant, you have to learn how to package things and deliver to homes, not just to give food to people at the tables. If you're working in a hotel, at a reception desk, your job is different. Technology has become a tool for us to make it easier. For example, I don't see why anybody must stand in line at a reception desk anymore at the hotel. You could get that on your phone now. You could get your key on your phone. You could check in on your phone and go and put your key in front of the door and the door will open, for example. So many things have changed, but the jobs will remain jobs. And the number of jobs that are provided by travel and tourism will continue to be the jobs. I don't think people will travel less at all. They'll travel more even than before, but they travel in a different way. They are changed because technology has become now a tool that we need to use. I don't believe that technology is going to make us lose jobs.
But
no.
What do you mean that people will not travel less, but travel in a different way?
More sustainable way.
Okay.
They travel in smaller groups. They travel to places outdoors more. They would like to enjoy their time. The concept of over-tourism would disappear soon, I hope. I think this crisis has many opportunities come out of it. You know, in the Chinese language, the word crisis and the word opportunity are one word. They don't use two different words. And there is a reason for that.
But do you think that you said a word now that for some years it had a great importance, and I think that also in tourism industry it will be of great importance. That is sustainability.
Yes.
This crisis helped this climate awareness or this sustainability awareness for the tourism industry, for the tourists. How do you see that people manage or that this great question of regarding the sustainability?
Let us first define sustainability. Sustainability is not just in environmental or climate sustainability.
It's also financial
and social.
Yes.
It's about jobs. It's about sustaining life on Earth. It's not anti-growth or anti-progress. You can't just keep things frozen and say you can't touch them because it becomes less sustainable. You have to keep growing. You have to be progressing. For example, who said that Manhattan was more beautiful before New York was built on it? You can build things, you can interfere in things, but that's still sustainable. It's how you build a skyscraper, not where you build it. Not the principle of building a skyscraper, for example. That's sustainability. Now, just to go back to what you said about tourism. Yes, sustainability will become a gainer and a winner out of all of this. It will. But it will only become like this. For example, you know, in Kenya, the rhino bulk has doubled its sizes in the last year. Double the rhino population. Because people are not going there. So we're starting to experience new things, start to experience new skies. People are not moving around. We start to experience clean weather. It's part of sustainability. It's not all of sustainability, but it's important part of it. So I think we learned the lesson very well.
Yes,
I believe in mankind, and mankind.
But you earlier said that you don't expect that people will travel less, and that people will travel even more in the future.
Yes.
How do you adapt this to sustainability and climate awareness?
Yes, they would travel more, but they would travel distributed, more destinations, and less numbers in one place, one time. The issue of seasonality, for example. Seasonality. You don't have many people being in the same time in the same place because it's summer or because it's a vacation. People are not going to do that anymore. They don't want to come close to each other. So people will travel more in terms of numbers, but more also in terms of the form of growth. The growth would be more sustainable growth, for sure. That's my prediction.
And
I'm an optimist by nature.
And do you think that this now in 3 or 4 or 6 months, do you think that people will travel domestically, more regionally, or the eager to travel is so great that they want to travel to countries far away and just to travel and forget the lockdowns and the confinements and all this?
No, we're already traveling domestically and regionally. We're already doing. It's the first to bounce back. In the United States and in Europe, 70 to 75% of travel is domestic. Only in developing countries, we don't have domestic tourism. Domestic tourism doesn't even count. There are no statistics for it. A tourist is only somebody that comes from outside. A blonde guy with blue eyes that comes from Mars. He's treated like king on earth. That's not right. What we need to do is make our people travel in their own countries first. Country that's not traveled, enjoyed by its own people, cannot be traveled and enjoyed by anybody from outside. So this is one of the advantages of this pandemic. People will start first by traveling domestically. And the industry has to prepare itself for that. For example, hotels, they will have to prepare different packages for the local people. They will have to adjust their peaks according to national and regional vacations. And they will have to adjust to that. The only way that international tourism can start is after regional tourism, domestic tourism has taken its volume and peak. And I believe that one of the ways of starting international tourism is by digital nomads. You know the digital nomads, the people that are working from abroad. They can come, travel for distances because they will stay longer. Instead of having 10 people staying for one night in a place, you have one person staying for 10 nights in the same place. It's even more sustainable and better.
Mr. Taleb, this interview is seen by several students of this institute. If you had to give a word of encouragement and hope to those who start now to their journey in this industry, in the tourism industry, as a student or as a professional, what would you say?
I would say you're living in a better world than we have lived in. Imagine you were born in 1900. You would have had the Spanish fever. You'd have had the First World War. You'd have had the Second World War. You'd seen so many wars and catastrophes. The world has become a better place. You must believe in this. Mankind is living the best of times. And this pandemic has come to uncover the weaknesses of the old world. So what I'm saying to the new generation is please embrace this world. Move forward. Be imaginative. Think outside of the box. Use technology as a tool. And move on. For example, I told you this before. I got my daughter married via Zoom now. My daughter lives in Dubai.
Via Zoom.
Yes, my daughter lives in Dubai. She and her husband are living there. Me and the father of the groom were in Amman, Jordan, where I'm calling you from now. The priest was on the third night. We gave him the okay. He married them. We had to think outside of the box because technology now is becoming a tool. Everything is becoming virtual. Not just the big, not just these meetings that we're seeing now. It's even personal events, like the one I mentioned. So you have to be imaginative. You have to think outside of the box. That's what I tell your students in your institute. Please, please believe in your word. We're living in a much better world than we've ever lived before. Definitely. Just think about it. 50, 60 years ago, there were no women voting in Switzerland. People in the United States were sitting, African people were sitting back seats of the buses. Today, this is not possible at all. We're living in a much better world, definitely, for sure. But we need to move forward. We need to think optimistically and use this opportunity to overturn the whole international system that's been so biased. So Africa, for example, has not been treated fairly in the last decade. Not at all. It's time for Africa to rise, stand on its feet, and show the world it has so much to offer, so on and so forth. Thank you.
But you say the example of your daughter's marriage via Zoom is something that that's the new normal. But this, for the professional universe of tourism in the MICE sector, meetings in all that, conferences and events, do you think that this new type of meetings, digital meetings, will have what kind of effect will this have, for example, for MICE?
It will have an effect for sure. But when I was in Spain a few months ago, I went to Seville. I attended a meeting there that's both virtual and physical. I think you call it hybrid. That's going to be the norm. People are going to go to places, keep distances, small people, but other people would join them in thousands and thousands via Zoom or via any kind of other electronic virtual means. That's the way it's going to be. Of course, the MICE industry would not bounce back first. First would bounce back is the leisure industry, for sure. People are very fed up. They can't wait to travel, go to places and see places. But then the meeting industry would bounce after that. Definitely.
Okay. Mr. Taleb, you left the World Tourism Organization in 2017. If you still were at the WTO, what would be the steps you would take or say to be taken in a global level?
I would first of all promote the messages I'm promoting now. We must all work together as government. The UNWTO is a intergovernmental organization. I must bring the governments of the world together. I would call for conferences on a regional basis. I'd call for meetings, for example, for African ministers, meetings for European ministers, not only ministers, heads of states also. I can do that. Call for meetings and ask them to face their reality. Raise my voice up high. Unfortunately, we don't hear any voices now. It's not the fault of WTO, it's the whole multilateral system that's failing.
But are there, what kind of lessons, if you should take a paper and note down 2 lessons that tourism industry can draw from this current crisis, what would it be? Or what would they be?
Number one is the importance of tourism itself. Nobody took tourism seriously before. I remember when I was in WTO, I used to travel with the president of WTTC, David Scousel at the time. We went to meet heads of states to explain to them how important tourism is. Now we don't need to do that because people are realizing how important it is, how much job they have lost, how much opportunities they have lost. So tourism comes out as a winner in this, in the minds of the people at least. Then the importance of domestic tourism is very important. As I said, in developing countries, domestic tourism is not seen even as tourism at all. The people there don't know their own country. They only receive the visitors to get their money. In India, for example, in Hyderabad, one of the villages around Hyderabad, there was a night where the people around a certain 5-star hotel attacked that hotel, put it on fire. Because you can't keep serving the rich people of the world when your own economic situation is not good. You need to travel in your own country. You need to appreciate what you have before anybody else appreciates it.
But do you think that the governments now will look to tourism differently?
Yes, they are already. You could feel that. But you need to pick it up. You need to highlight it. You need to speak about it. Raise your voice. Bring people together. Put them in front of their responsibility. That's what you need to do.
Before I pass to the questions of who is watching us and seeing this interview, I have one last question for you, and that is, what could be a positive message for all the tourism and travel industry now?
Come together. You can only do it together. No government can do it on own, no matter how good your plan is. Definitely. Come together as governments, because the private sector is really waiting for governments to move. It's in the hands of governments. Governments are so preoccupied, now correctly so, with the fact that they need to save lives, of course. But saving life does not mean living without dignity. Now, you need to balance life and livelihoods, life and quality of life. That's the responsibility of government, and no government can do it alone. That's for sure. So my message to the world is the following. Come together. Let's work to do this together. To the young people is, please believe in your world. There's a new world coming up. Use technology as a tool. That's my message. Thank you.
I will now open the panel for question. Now in Portuguese, pedia que colocassem aqui as questões. And Mr. Taleb, the first question is from Helzio Azevedo, and he asked, the question is as follows: how countries like Mozambique in Africa are very poor. How can they recover the tourism sector when facing financial problems to have vaccines?
Well, you have to have the rich countries of the world recognize that vaccine is not the answer. Because if vaccine is going to be the answer, countries like Mozambique will be left out, for sure. Testing is a good way. Put your money in testing and put your money where it really pays back. I'm saying this to the rich people of the world, not to the people of Mozambique. People of Mozambique, I know, are trying hard. But the people of Mozambique have another opportunity now to create their own creativity, think outside of the box. Africa all together.
But do you think that this developing countries could they only face this crisis in a positive way by having help from the rich countries?
Well, they first must come together as Africans.
Okay.
If they come together as Africans, they will make a big difference, because they will impose what they want on the whole world. When the world will travel, they will travel to Africa. They're not going to travel to countries that are not vaccinated. So it's in an interest of African travelers to vaccinate the people of Mozambique. It's in the interest of Europeans to do that.
Yes, and WTO, what kind of role could WTO have in all this?
Well, they could bring the governments of Africa together, for example. Nobody's bringing them together at all. I'm a patron of ATB, Africa Tourism Board, and I'm trying to do that my best now, to bring the governments of Africa together. They want to come together. They're waiting for it. They're yearning for it. But they need a facilitator to do that. WTO is the best facilitator to do that. I can see somebody's asking about the World Health Organization as well, and the relationship between WTO and WHO. Of course, it's an important relationship.
This is one other question that is put here is World Tourism Organization. Should they join efforts with World Health organization to help this kind of countries? I mean, I think that this kind of countries are poor countries.
Of course they must. Of course they must. But first they must bring the countries together. Each organization has its own clientele. World Tourism Organization has the ministers of tourism. The World Health Organization has the ministers of health. If both countries make a conference, for example, for African tourism ministers and health ministers, to meet together and talk and tell them, you're not going to leave this room before you agree on something. We used to do that. You're not leaving this room before we come to an agreement. That would help a lot.
Okay, next question is, do you agree with the vaccination passport? Is it not discriminatory, or is it a help for travelers in tourism?
No, it's discriminatory. I'm against the vaccination passport if it's the only way of traveling. It can be part of another package that includes testing and antibodies testing. But alone, no. I'm not for it.
Just the vaccination passport, you are not
I'm
seeing
against
it as
it. I'm definitely not.
Okay.
It's discriminatory. Okay. It's discriminatory. It's not going to work.
But do you think that it will not help travelers in tourism?
Well, it would help rich countries to travel to each other only.
Okay.
You can't travel to a poor country. Poor country cannot come to you. This is a problem. And the most destinations of the world are in the developing countries.
Another question. Good afternoon, Mr. Rifai. Do you consider that betting on the confidence and security felt by people can be great keys for the future of the tourism sector?
Definitely. Because people are not going to travel just because the government said you can travel now. They have to feel good about it. One of the ways of doing it is that the Caribbeans are doing. They have a program called the Caribbean Cares, Jamaica Cares, which is buying an insurance policy. When you buy your ticket, you pay $25 more. You buy an insurance policy. This insurance policy will guarantee you to be treated. It's only for COVID, or be repatriated to your own country if you so wish. These are measures that can be done to secure your peace of mind. You need to communicate confidence. And the other way of communicating confidence is to concentrate on hygiene and cleanliness. People are not going to travel on airplanes that are not clean, or go to restaurants that are not, their waiters are not wearing masks, so on and so forth. So this is all messages of confidence for sure.
Okay. Next question. It is divided in two. Mr. Rifai, do you have any idea of what will happen to the cruise industry, for example?
The cruise industry has been unfairly treated because there were some incidents at the beginning where some germs were spread on the cruise and the whole cruise was affected. Cruise is like an island, and it's floating all over the world. You can control it. If you control it well, the cruise industry can be the first to bounce back if you have a good procedure to do it. But you need to make sure that whatever ports you go to are also consistent with your procedures.
Yes.
You can't have a cruise just being by themselves. They're going to go and land in Greece, and in Portugal, land in Spain, so on and so forth. So when they go down...
Do you think that the people are when I say people, I say the governments. Do you think that they are looking too much to the airline companies, to aviation, and not to cruise ship, for example?
There is a bias against cruise, for sure. Not in favor of airlines, for sure. I'm not saying this against air, but there is a bias against cruises because of the few incidents that happened before. Okay. Airlines are in a better situation now than cruises, for sure.
Another question. Companies are now pressing the CDC because they seem to have been abandoned. Do you think their future is promising, that they will survive to this unprecedented crisis?
By CDC, you mean the controlled disease?
Yes, I think so. CDC, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yes. I believe the CDC is part of the old system, unfortunately.
The old system.
Yes, the governments. And they need to be adjusted now, just like everything else is going to be adjusted. Old governments are not going to work anymore. Old system is not going to work anymore. They will survive it, but they need to be definitely different in the way they look at things. Too classical. They're too classical.
Yes. Let me see. I want to. This is not a question. This is a comment. I have a question for our guest. I don't know if this was answered already, but here it goes. Once the pandemic is over, I want to believe that in the next year we will be over. So do you think people will think about recovering the lost time due to the pandemic?
The pandemic will not be over just like that. What will be over is the old ways of doing things. We are not going to go back to the way we were. We're going to go forward to where we should be. So the concept of pandemic disappearing just like that is not going to happen, unfortunately. And the second part of the question is, will the sector be going through the crisis next year?
Yes.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think we're improving every day. Every day the world is getting better in its consciousness and its awareness, its vaccination and its testing ability. People are getting more conscious, more aware of the new norm. So every day is going to get better than the day before. Tomorrow is better than yesterday, for sure.
Let's see the last two questions regarding the 2030 agenda. Are we aware of what are the current talks at the United Nations about the impacts of the pandemic and perhaps future guidelines?
United Nations is not talking about the pandemic at all, unfortunately.
Do you think they are not talking about the pandemic?
No, they're not. They're not concerned with it, unfortunately. They talk about the SDGs, yes, but only as if nothing has happened, unfortunately.
Okay, that's a very big critic, but
Yeah.
let's go. Let's see. Yes. So that's a critic all for the Secretary General of the United Nations.
Not Antonio Guterres. He's a good man, but the system is a different system. The system is not helping him, just like all the organizations I was criticizing. They're not concerned with this issue. They think it will go away next year or the year after by itself, and we'll go back to the old norms. We're not going to go back to the old norms. We need to change ourselves. We need to bring the world together in a different way. I think the whole UN would be rebuilt again from bottom up, brick by brick. As I said before, there will be a united world, but it will be a different united world, a more fair, a more equitable, and less racist world.
Okay, let's look at the last question. Mr. Taleb Rifai, thank you for your vision that I consider very contemporary. It's the voice of the experience. Do you think that authenticity of places will keep being the best product to offer for those who are visiting other geographies?
Of course, but authenticity is about the people, not just about the place. Authenticity is a mixed culture. It's about people. So people are becoming more important here. Yes.
It's what you said about Portugal.
Yes, exactly. So authenticity is about how you keep that culture of the place intact, how you keep growing with it in ways that become more attractive, different from anybody. You travel to places because you respect those places. Don't travel to a place that you don't respect. So you have to go to places that are different from yours. Authenticity is difference. And difference is what makes travel a unique activity, human activity for sure.
Okay, so let's see at the last question. Good afternoon to all. Mr. Rifai, thank you for your speech and ideas. Some optimistic message to address specifically tourism students?
Yes, I think I said that before. Please believe in your world. Your world is a better world now than it was yesterday, in spite of everything you see around you. Use technology in an imaginative way. Use it as a tool. Don't let it be your slave. You don't be a slave of technology. Make technology become your slave. That's what you need to do. You need to use technology as a tool. That's what I tell my students now.
Last question, Mr. Taleb Rifai, how many years will be important we make national tourism to help the economy to recover?
The economy will recover much faster than we think it would. But it would not only depend on tourism, it would depend on so many things. It would depend on the consciousness and awareness of the people. It all depends. If the world does not come together first, no recovery is going to happen. Not even the richest countries in the world. We've seen the United States, what happened in the United States, for example. The United States is not going to recover very soon. It's a rich country. The economy can become better on numbers, but it's not the numbers that matter anymore. You know, the index of happiness, for example, is going to become more important than the index of GDP. So on and so forth, yes.
Okay. Mr. Taleb, we reached the end of this interview. Thank you again very much. Thank you for your time. Keep safe. I hope to see you sooner than the last 4 years between these interviews that we had, 2017 in Public Tourism and now 2021 and today. Again, thank you.